There we go. All right, shoot. Welcome on, man. We just since Black August, of course, it's been Black August for 6 days. But just want to go over a little bit of the history. I know people ramble about this kind of stuff every year, but it's necessary, but like doing some of the piece session, I want to go like highlight different people, like every time, like people that ain't you know necessarily the Black August martyrs. Of course, it's just 8 of them, but just to highlight some people who were, had revolutionary minds and revolutionary actions in their life. They did great work, male and female, old or young. Just to highlight them and bring up their history. In specific. So you know what I'm saying. But now today, I just want to highlight a person that's kind of well known. It's not a unknown; it's a well known. But his birthday's in 2 days, and it's Dr. Matulu Shakur, who passed away a couple of years ago, who was let out on compassionate release of prison. After being in prison since the 1980s, he was just let out in 2022, and he passed away the following year. So his birthday is August 8th. He was born August 8th, 1950, out of Baltimore. Uh, and so, he started organizing, at a young age. You know what I'm saying? You talking about somebody who was, who was about their life all the way through. I always call him the greatest acupuncturist, in our lifetime anyway. Even beyond that, maybe last 50 years, I think he's the most influential. I ain't gonna say just greatest, but I know a lot of Eastern communities are big on acupuncture. But I feel like as far as the North American continent, I think that he's the most effective or the most influential acupuncturist in the last 50, 60 years or so. Because of how he pushed it, to the community, starting with the Lincoln Detox Center in the South Bronx. After the collaboration of the Black Panther Party and the Young Lords organization had taken over, and made it something that the people need as opposed to a blood sucking, hospital or what have you that it was at first. They didn't want to serve the people in a just way. And when I say take over, that's actually what happened. They decided that, they're gonna take, their destiny in their own hands. And 40, 50 years ago, this was a normal thing, really. Not like everybody was doing it. Of course, we know that. Of course, we have elders in the community that play like everybody was, or they make it seem as though everybody was doing this or doing that. In the '60s we did this or did that, and most of them didn't do a damn thing. But of course, those who did do something, it was coming for them to, make radical movements or have a radical or very radical and aggressive approach to, the liberation theology that they upheld with actual, revolutionary action and taking over the Lincoln Detox Center and making it something that, that was important for the people and useful for the people. They actually did this, the Young Lords and the Black Panthers and some other groups that were in solidarity as well. And so, they brought Dr. Matulu Shakur in, who had previously in his younger days, as a teenager, was a member of the Revolutionary Action Movement. One of their prominent members was Maxwell, formerly known as Maxwell Stafford, who wrote a book some years ago called In the Whirlwind. It's a pretty good book to check out, breaking down different history of different groups during that time. And later, he was one of the founding members of the Republic of New Africa and the New African Independence Movement. That stresses that African people were at one point owed $400 billion by the United States government in reparations, but actually were owed, the southern states, Louisiana, Mississippi, Alabama, Georgia, and South Carolina, because we had, worked so hard forcibly, in the enslavement process. We had worked these lands so hard, which we had been working since the 1500s. I know a lot of people always say 1619. That's the date we always point to. But African people from different parts of the world were brought to Spanish and French territory in Americas. Is as far as we can go back, is 1526, which is actually 500 years ago. We talked about this 400 years ago thing already, but now it's 500, and maybe soon it probably be 500 plus. If we don't make the right necessary moves. And so I always go back to 1526 because we were brought to Georgia and South Carolina during that process, and then later on to Virginia in 1619. But we had been owed this land because of the work that we put in forcibly, without any just due, any without being compensated at all, just brutality and murder and brainwashing and indoctrination. So the Republic of New Africa was big on having the 5 states and having African people have practicing self-determination in this space without the intervention and control of the United States government. So Matulu was heavy in the New African Revolutionary Movement. Then, of course, they brought him along into the Lincoln Detox Center, where he first, before he got his doctorate in acupuncturist, he was the political education. He was over the political education uh, at first, of course, because political education is always needed. It's easy to be like, well, you the 12-step program. You get out drugs are bad, this and then the third. But everything is political. You have to break down the politics of why drugs even exist so heavily in certain communities, why it was Bronco, why it continues to be Bronco, and why certain communities are affected by these drugs, and you know how we can organize to rid ourselves of the drug problem. And so that's what Dr. Matulu's job was as a political head of political education until he became over the acupuncture program. And so it's just a little bit about Dr. Matulu. Did we ever show at the Beasley Center? We show Dope is Death yet?
Nah, we haven't.
Oh, I don't know why someone was telling me we did. I don't know what made me think that. Okay, okay, that'll probably be good uh one day for us to show that. That's a good, real good piece, documentary uh to show. So yeah, but Dope is Death is a great documentary. It breaks down some of this history I talk about in a little bit more detail than what I'm explaining. So that'll be a good thing to put on the calendar at some point. Yeah, Dope is Death documentary. So yeah, but that was just a little bit about Dr. Matulu Shakur, who's a mentor to us, throughout his years. A motivation for us, going into health education and starting the People's Lunch Counter, way back in 2008. After him writing and inspiring us to do as such. And actually pushing the Thug Life Code as well. Of course, he had the Thug Life Code that he actually gave to. Hey, hey, that he actually gave to Tupac, back when Tupac had the Thug Life movement and stuff like that. Around the time he actually had the Thug Life album. So he had the Thug Life code, that he gave to Tupac to kind of, to give it to somebody he felt would be influential in the community amongst the street guys, you know what I'm saying, to push a code of conduct. So it won't just be a bunch of damn free for all, which of course we always see in certain communities that is that any damn way. Uh, but yeah, so he actually sent the thug code to me and Yafeo some years ago, We was pushing it in certain areas, you know what I'm saying? Some cats wasn't buying it, but they didn't want a code of conduct. That's just what that meant. Other people appreciated the thug codes or whatnot. But yeah, so that's just a little bit about Dr. Matulu Shakur. But of course, it's Black August, and we want to kind of point out and give thanks to those who the Black August martyrs, you know what I'm saying, who wasn't on a suicide mission person, you know what I'm saying, a suicide mission, but they gave their life for in resistance of, this this culture of enslavement and imperialism. And so in the midst of that, they were assassinated or what have you. And those martyrs are, of course, we know George Jackson, Field Marshal of the Black Panther Party, and the founder of the Black Guerrilla family. But his little brother as well, Jonathan Peter Jackson, who was assassinated during the Marin County Courthouse Rebellion, August 7, 1970, in an attempt to free uh, James McClain. Frida Drungo, and of course George Jackson, his brother, because he felt it was necessary to get his brother free without having to go through, the course which they wanted George to stay behind bars anyway. Uh, but of course, those two. But you also have W.L. Nolan, who was instrumental in helping George get to his political stance and political education. Sometimes we have great people that come amongst our community and we think they just was self-made. You know, and that's how a lot of YouTube and TikTok influencers these days. Even some of the lecturers before TikTok got hot. A lot of the lecturers, that's how they paint this picture, right? They self-made, and that, they acquired all this knowledge, and and they the top gun. They don't have any, bloodline. I always call it a revolutionary bloodline, meaning you come from a revolutionary formation in some way or another. They don't claim any of that. They just say, I'm here, I'm this, and I'm that. You need to listen to me. You know what I'm saying? But of course, we know that, all of our elders and comrades that were back in the day, they come from a revolutionary bloodline. You know what I'm saying? George at first wasn't thinking about no damn liberation. You know what I'm saying? He was just like, you know, all of the young people who may have had a struggle in the household, even though he did have both his parents. But you have the up and downs in the household, moving from place to place, not being inspired, by the school system, and getting into petty criminal activity, stuff that young people do all the time. And so that what was encouraging him at first, is how he ended up in prison on a warrant to life for $70 gas station robbery, allegedly that he supposedly done when he was 19. But of course, later on, he was inspired by people who were in the prison who was actually, about something different, about changing their way of thinking and their approach to life. And so he caught on to that, and he began to do the same thing. And after he done it, he was just as sharp as any of the rest. You know what I'm saying? And so, W.L. Nolan and some other guys, James Carr, who wrote a book called Bad. You might want to check that book out. James Carr wrote a book called Bad on his revolutionary experience. He is somebody that George wanted to connect with if he ever got free from the prisons. He wanted to connect with James Carr and link up with him and fund, his revolutionary activities that he was a part of outside of the prison. But other people as well, of course, the Black Panther Party, Huey Newton and others influenced George Jackson as well. That's how he became a member and the field marshal of the Black Panther Party, which they were inspired. It was both ways. He was inspiring them. They was inspiring, him. So, but yeah, W.L. Nolan, Alvin Jug Miller, Cleveland Edwards, Katari Galden, Ruchell McGee, who just passed away a couple years ago after he was released. Uh, uh, that around that same time, he was the last, living member of the Marin County Courthouse Rebellion, August 7, 1970. And of course, he was held behind bars prison for so long because he was somebody that survived. Anytime you survive an attack by the state, you are not their friend. You wasn't their friend in the first place. Even if you just a common cripple blood or somebody who hit an old lady upside the head to take her money, they don't give a damn about you. Uh, one way or the other. You're just gonna be prison labor to them, cheap prison labor. But once you politicize yourself, you become an organizer. Of course, you really become a target to them. And for him to be somebody that survived this thing that people look up to, like, yeah, this was a necessary rebellion right here, and something that people uphold every year. You know, they don't take that too light. So they think it's like, okay, you want to survive, you're gonna keep your head behind these prison walls for the rest of your life, and that's their attitude. Same reason why they had all the bounties and stuff on Asada Shakur, and why they consider her you know, the first woman international terrorist in history, is because she survived as well, and she was able to escape captivity and live out the rest of her days in a territory which they consider a major opposition. And so same thing with her. It's just you become hit on the hit list, because you survived. They don't mind you being you not surviving, but as long as you survive, you're definitely a big enemy to them, and that's what the case was with Ruchell McGee. Of course, he was eventually released. So yeah, James McClain, W.L. Nolan, Alvin Judd Miller, Cleveland Evans, Qatari God, Ruchell McGee, William Christmas. These are the what we call the Black August martyrs, right? And in the prisons, these people are who inspired Black August in the prisons before it came out into where we are at, into the open space. It was in the prisons. And Qatari Garden was, a leading revolutionary theorist and organizer in the prisons. But in 1978, of course, he had a head injury while playing football in the prison yard, and this head injury was very serious. But of course, the prison didn't give a damn. So, they let him sit in the infirmary without getting assisted, and he passed away in the infirmary due to that situation that happened. And so that's when it really kicked off the Black August culture, which is a culture that commemorates as well as is dedicated to a reinvention of liberation and a continuation of liberation theology and revolutionary radical approaches to freedom, justice, and equality. And it stresses training, and training come in different levels. Of course, you have physical training, the 24-hour fitness training. You're doing your weights, you're doing your pull-ups, your crunches. You may even do a little boxing or what have you. Basic calisthenics. Then you have other kind of training, martial arts, weapon training, things of that nature. You know what I'm saying? But so training come in all levels, but training the mind, body, and soul. Also studying, being heavily in and studying not just revolutionary texts, but text, period. Just studying whatever you can study, that has anything to do with how we can better the community and better the world. It could be economics, spirituality, health education, things on all levels. Studying all the international revolutionary theories throughout the history and using that to see what best serves our community or what approach would be best for where you live at. Because of course we know all approaches don't work everywhere you go. The approach that our elders and ancestors had years ago, some of that approach don't work today because many things have changed, things have evolved, and we suffered a military defeat in the 60s and 70s with the Black liberation movements. It was a military defeat, and that within itself, along with the drugs and the sabotage and the dividing of our communities, infrastructure. Along with that, the military defeat of our community and within itself uh, was a defeat, not just physically, but for the minds of our people. You know, them seeing it, because it ain't like this shit it ain't like this happened behind the scenes. This is something that happened in front of our face, right? You know what I'm saying? You know, the death of Sherman Fred Hampton Jr., him and Mark, defense captain Mark Clark, that happened, even though that happened early in the morning, people knew what happened, you know, and they knew why it happened, you know, at that time. You know what I'm saying? And so people seeing this stuff happen. It ain't like this was in the shadows. You know, the bombing of the MOVE organization facility, you know what I'm saying, and living areas, quarters, you know what I'm saying? So the people seeing this stuff, and this does something to you when you see this type of sabotage and aggressiveness by the people that govern you, you know, they kind of do something to you. You know what I'm saying? It has the same effect of the chattel enslavement process. You know, it's the same effect. And so that military defeat done something to our communities, you know what I'm saying? And so, you know, all the other factors came in. That was just a major blow. So we always have, you know, constantly redefining where we are in the movement and in the world and what should be done and where we are right now and what we must do. You know what I'm saying? Because we constantly having to seem like we having to constantly start over because of, you know, all the things that happen in the 60s and 70s. And so we constantly in a place where we have to, you know, relearn different tactics on how to get the people level of consciousness raised and how to get them involved in the process. And that's one of the major things that Black August is supposed to do. It's just not nothing that we look back on, you know, and say, yeah, this happened. You know what I'm saying? Long live Black August, this, that, and the third. Yeah, but it's a continuation process to it. You know what I'm saying? It's kind of like how why Dr. Carter G. Woodson founded Black History Week, now known as Black History Month. You know, which a lot of people don't even know why why he came with this approach. It wasn't, you know, he even said it himself is that, you know, not Black August, but Black History Month, History Week at that time, it was called 1926, is that it's not about the past. It's about what we're doing right now. So it's about an ongoing, you know, movement for progress. It's not about, okay, what happened back then, we commemorating that. It's about ongoing progress, you know, as far as our daily lives are concerned. And the same thing with Black August is a continuation process. You know, yesterday Q would ask me, he's like, you know, how do we get, you know, people attached to the Black August culture, which that is not nothing is easy to attach yourself to because Black August, the culture of Black August always is stress discipline, right? Fasting, that's a part of it as well. You know, fasting from sun up to sundown, you know, what, of course, what they used in the, you know, with the Black August Organizing Committee and those who founded that process, and, you know, fasting from 8 a.m. to 8 p.m., you know, and actually setting aside what we call flea days, which is 4 of them, which we have an honorary flea day, which hadn't been made a official flea day yet. I don't know why. In those days, August 7th, uh, August 13th, and the day that I'm saying that should be honorary is August 12th because I think it was 2017 when Hugo Yogi Pinell, who was let out into the general population for the first time in about 40 years, was assassinated. He was barricaded into a corner and assassinated in the general population, um, you know, because of his influence, you know, and this is an old man when this happened. And so that was on August 12th. And so many people have always felt like there should be an honorary day, but the official day is August 7th, August 13th, uh, August, August, was it 7th, 13th? I missed, no, first, August 1st, August 7th, August 13th, August 21st, when George Jackson was assassinated. So those are the flea days. The flea days are days you don't eat at all. You just straight fast the whole time. You just drink water and work out and study and do those things. And so it stresses a lot of discipline just in the core principles itself. You know, not even making the additions with the studying and the training and things of that nature and being heavily involved in the community, but just his core principles are some that some people just don't. I'm not gonna say they don't want to, but they're not used to doing. Unless they are Muslim and they already practice Ramadan and things like that. When it comes to the fasting part. But the other part. So, it's made to be a continuation of progress and of revolutionary movement. And those people who founded it and who were part of it in its beginning stages, they were hardcore. They wasn't as casual as some of us today. We're a little bit casual with what we do, but they were hardcore. You know what I'm saying? And of course, they were at a time where, you know, young people were attaching themselves to this. Now it wasn't everybody that was young. You still had some young people doing their thing. They don't want to hear it. They don't want to hear that revolutionary stuff. But you did have some young people attaching themselves to the liberation and revolutionary culture and running away with it. Like I mentioned, Dr. Mutulu Shakur was a teenager when he started getting active in the revolutionary action movement. I mentioned Chairman Fred Hampton Sr. He was organized at the earliest age, 14, 15 years old. You see what I'm saying? So these was young people who were organizing on a serious note. You have to think about that. You have to think about what have this society done from then to now. What have they done to bring us to this point where some teenagers that age, it's hard to keep their attention, let alone giving them a revolutionary ideology that they're going to push, you know, even more than the elders do. What has happened from then to now that, you know, have taken away the process of their development in which they can organize and they can organize at the forefront. And the elders just advise them on how to move, what steps to take, what kind of discipline you need, the art of leadership. This is how the movement was back in the day. You had the council, you had the advisors, those who give direction. But they knew that you have to have all age groups a part of the process, and you have to have male and female. You have to have that balance a part of the process of leadership. But you allow the young people because they're the most courageous. Once you become a father or a grandfather, it's certain moves that, is kind of risky for you to take because, if something happened to you, bread get taken, bread and food get taken off the table. See what I'm saying? Especially back then. You taking a father or mother out the household. Even though a lot of fathers were the breadwinners back then, and now it kind of is both in some cases. But you take either one out of the household because of imprisonment, or they get hurt or assassinated, whatever it may be. You know, you're putting a dent into the household, the economics of the household. So they knew to push the young people out who didn't have nothing to lose, not to put them in harm's way, but to understand that those are the most courageous and idealistic at the time is the young people. They think they can conquer all things. So you putting them in there before they get, defeated in the mind. And once you defeated in the mind, no ideology can bring you back to life or raise you from the dead, so to speak. So while you're still young and courageous, and creative and idealistic, we're gonna have you pushing this platform of revolution because you would new say the young always inherit the youth always inherit the revolution. But now we are at a day and time where they have sabotaged not only the prison movements, but the educational institutions. Every day, every week, I'm hearing updates about certain things. And so, the institutions that not only for, you know, textbook education, but also it used to be playgrounds for institutions, playgrounds for raising the level of consciousness of young people. You know what I'm saying? To lead, to push for change in society, that's been, pushed to the side a little bit, and it been sabotaged, by the state because they know what college campuses can produce and what kind of people it can produce. The kind of people that set the tone, for Black August and the Black August culture. And so, it's been sabotaged because of their potential. And so now we have to look at how do we get that back. What measures must we use to get people involved in this culture? While everybody's, pushing the Black August on their timeline and things of that nature, what are you gonna do when September comes? When September comes, it's still about Black August revolutionary culture. Because you have to look at the history of August just as a month. It's so much, so many historical things happening a month August. You know, the birth times of some of our great ancestors, rebellions, so many slave rebellions, revolutionary rebellions, and what I'm saying, and movements, assassination, all kind of achievements. What I'm saying, big achievements. A lot of these things happen in the month of August. It's just a historical month. So that's the type of money that you let carry over. It's not nothing that you just put down like we do with Black History Month because we allowed Black History Month to be you know taken over or influenced, by the status quo. And now we look at Black History Month, in a way that those who co-opted it look at it, right? Or want you to look at it, you know, playing the same old speeches. You're doing the commercials on TV, and you looking at it like it's just a thing about individual achievement, as opposed to what Carter G. Woodson expressed that it was supposed to be way back in the 1920s. And so that has been co-opted. Now, Black August has a little bit more stronger, radical influence in his history. So it's not likely to be co-opted by the state. However, the conditions of society may dictate that it get watered down a little bit, from what its core principles were. And of course, it's our job not to let that happen. And it's bigger than just people look at it's just the prison movement and things like that. But you got to look at in the 19 before the military defeat of our Black liberation movement in 1970s, the prison movement was one of the biggest movements in the world. That wasn't no isolated thing. How you think George Jackson became a national hero, so to speak? How you think that happened? A man behind bars. Been behind bars, he was 19, assassinated at age 29. That was one of the core movements in this country, pushing for abolition, which abolition means you're against slavery. That's what abolition means. It doesn't mean that you're against prisons. It means you're against slavery, period. Enslavement, period. That's what abolition means. You're anti-slavery, anti-imperialism. That's what abolition means. It's bigger than, dealing with talking about, oh, we're against people being, mass incarceration and things of that nature. It's the abolishment of slavery, period. Meaning abolition of people being dominated by another group of people in its entirety. And so, but the prison movement has yet to reemerge as one of the top movements in the world, and it has been some attempt, to do as such, in August of 2017, we had the Ministry for Prisons Human Rights March, which was a great success. It was well attended, and a lot of spirits was uplifted, and a lot of radical change was talked about amongst the younger generation, which this happened all across the country, not just in D.C., but in many places around the country, all in one day. And but however, prison movements, in some cases, to some of the people we know in the movement, is not sensational enough. But that's just what we're talking about when we come up Black August. We're not talking about no shit that's sensational. You want to jump in the movement and do something that's sensational. You know what I'm saying? It's fun, right? It's not fun to talk about political prisoners and prisoners of war. But guess what? You can't even condemn the United States until you condemn the fact that they have prisoners of war. Right? The fact that there is even a war on our community, you can't even recognize, you can't even have a discussion about that to the next generation without time to bringing out the fact that it is a such thing as political prisoners and prisoners of war. People who are in prison because of their political activism and ideas. That is not in the box of what the status quo would like. So you can't even have this discussion without entertaining that. So some of us want to point out the contradictions. We want to be whatever, radical, and we want to be the next thing coming, but we don't want to deal with political prisoners or prisoners of war, which doesn't make any sense. Every movement in the world, one of their key things to deal with is political prisoners and prisoners of war. We want these people free. Why do we want them free? We don't want them free because they in prison for raping a 13-year-old child, or beating up old lady upside the head and taking her lunch money. That's we want these people free because they are part of our community. They made the greatest contribution to our community, but yet you got them behind bars because it doesn't fit the script of the enslavement process. So you can't even talk about anything on a college campus, high school, uh, in your living room with kids sitting down in Indian style. You can't even begin to discuss this without talking about the fact that we have political prisoners or prisoners of war. Because then you're dealing with it on an international stage. Because the international community is going to understand this as well. You see what I'm saying? Because they got the same things going on with them. So, but to keep ourselves from this is just what the status quo wants. They use prison not only for labor, but they use prison to isolate people. That's why there's such thing as the hole. See what I'm saying? That's why they're gonna keep you in the hole if you too damn radical or you're educating the prisoners too much. They're gonna put them in the hole 200 days. Let's go. Let's get it. They don't care if it's illegal or if it's a human rights violation, because nothing gonna happen unless somebody bring it up. Then they have to deal with it. See what I'm saying? The warden and the state and all them. Then they got to deal with it. But they don't have to deal with it. Don't nobody say nothing. You know what I'm saying? So they use this to isolate our family, to isolate, the political prisoners and the prisoners of war that contribute to our community. They use the prison to isolate that whole thing going on, because what's going on in the prison is just a microcosm of what's going on out here. It's the same thing. It's just in a box, right, in between these cell blocks. But out here is the same thing. And so the critical prison movements was one of the top movements. And, you have to put all aspects of movements, and they all have the same level of relevance. That's what we missing. We want to put one thing over the other, right? We want, police brutality, police terrorism, whatever it is. Police terrorism and police brutality is not an incident within its own. You think that just happened? Just cause all of a sudden it's a few bad cops and that's what make everything? No, 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 no. No, the same thing with corruptions in the hospitals. Same thing with the prison labor. The same thing when we talking about the labor movements with the conditions in the employment sector. It's the same thing. They all have the same level of relevance. Is no one is bigger than the other, and the more we know that, the more we'll pay attention to all of it. And you know what I'm saying? And so the prison movement can have a resurgence. The movement against police terrorism and terrorism by the state can have a reemergence. It can surge back up to the top of the principles of what we demand from the state or what have you. The same thing with the miseducation in the school system. All this, it has its same relevancy, and so we have to tackle all of them. We don't need no stone unturned. You have to deal with all of it. Even electoral politics as well. Same thing, same difference. You have to attack all of them with the same principles involved. And one group or one organization or one formation is not going to be able to do them all. But we must push that all of these things must be dealt with. Community control of public safety, which is a piece that I put in a We Are Balagoons book. They'll be coming out soon. Calling for a community control of public safety. Not just all community control of the civilian oversight or community control of police. Public safety is what control the police. Public safety what dictate all measures and how communities are being dealt with, the funds and everything, how everybody is protected and move forward in society. As far as safety and security is concerned. So you're talking about community control over public safety isn't in as its entirety. And Black August brought to us the understanding that we got to tackle all of it, with the same strength. We can't be okay. We soft today and soft. We got to be aggressive with it. We might as well. We might as well. It's coming up on 500 years. As I say, it's 500 years since we've been here, doing what other folks want us to do. We're gonna have to get aggressive in our approach to getting the community to understand that it's about time that we practice some level of self-determination. And these radical ideas brought to us by not just the prison movement, but the spirit and the principles of Black August. It's about time we start, pushing that more than what we used to. But of course, we all know the community has to accept these principles. And Black August culture is not nothing that's easy to accept, but it must be pushed and explained, in its entirety, with the strength that it is the strength that is, that it was meant to have in its beginning. So anybody got anything?
When?
Huh?
No, that was great. I guess what I've been thinking about recently is um, how it relates now, and you were raising this point, how it would relate now to current society as far as political prisoners and everything, because I do believe that we are in a different atmosphere. Of course, in the
Yeah.
60s and 70s,
Mhm.
you had the Black Power movement, and you had the Black Panthers, and these type of things that were, and also you had the national liberation movements in Africa that were kind of like heightening the consciousness of of Black people at the time. So
Right.
for something like the uh, a political prisoner movement to come around and be something people organize around, there was like plausibility to it. Like it made sense. And I guess I'm looking at where we are in 2025 and how people can see themselves in this type of movement, and not only look at it as something that's like, oh, that's good what y'all are doing, but actually be like, no, this has bigger implications uh, for how we go about in life, not only for people that end up locked up, but ourselves as well. So I wanted your opinion on it.
Yeah. Yeah. We are in a different time, man. Shoot, I want your opinion on it. You know what I'm saying? I mean, we used to have the conference in Indianapolis. You know what I'm saying? I wasn't there this time. I seen some of the footage, but I didn't see all of the footage, of some of the measures that people thought that we should take, and connecting the families and bringing them into a certain level of consciousness so it can grow throughout the community. You know, like I said, I seen some of the footage. I didn't see it all. But shoot, I mean, what you get from it that you thinking, press the Black August culture forward.
I think it goes back to what you said. we still keep the radical elements of it. But I guess, you know, there's been a lot of circulation about tenant organizing,
Yeah, yeah,
and the way I've been thinking about that is uh, basically just the way people go about living, their living conditions. So
yeah,
if we're saying, you know, people are dealing with inhumane living conditions and, you know, in their housing, in their apartments, then how do we correlate that to what's going on in jail and these people that have been in there
yeah,
unjustly and have been treated a certain type of way? So not only do we want to abolish uh, you know, the relationship between the landlord and the tenant, but we also want to abolish the relationship between the prisoner and the carceral system. And not only that, but we also want to abolish the wage labor system, which has perpetuated our to your point, our economic slavery, our economic dependence based on private ownership. So that's the way I've been thinking about like tying all of it together in a way that people might see themselves and be like, yes, I'm living in bad situations in my apartment, inhumane, mold, rats, and all this. But
hmm
I can also see myself also with a prisoner that has been trapped in a hole for a long period of time. Uh, you know, the lights being you know, the lights being left on to where these people can sleep because, you know, it's
hmm
offering you sleep. So, you know, just thinking about it on those lines, which I think, you know, might be possible.
Yeah, 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 yeah. Yeah, it just really just, yeah, like you said, that was pretty good. You know, it's just bringing it their awareness that all these things relate to each other and is orchestrated by the same, you know, by the same author. You know what I'm saying? The same author is writing all these books. In other words, these books of treacherous conditions. And you know, it ain't like our people can't relate to prison. They may not understand the prison movement per se, you know, but they can relate to it because shit, most of us got somebody we know that been, you know, going to prison. You
maybe
know.
maybe maybe I should be more specific. Like I guess what I mean is like the political prisoner part. Like I've been
Oh,
thinking I've been thinking about it like, you know, it rings in my head when Yafael says like he still can't believe that, you know, we got the park named after Fahim Minka.
mhm. Yeah.
Uh and I think about how that relates to the political prisoners, where people might be like, yeah, prisoners, you know, need to be treated better, but I don't know about all this political stuff and all the things that they did, which I feel like might alienate them in a way, even though uh, there's freedom in the the Black August movement. It's just
Yeah.
it's just how do we kind of bring them in to where they stick around long enough to be able to engage it. You know what I mean?
Yeah. 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 You know, really, it just, I mean, how do we keep them around? We just got to put, people got to be put to work. You know, we got to be, you know, we got to keep the people busy enough to keep the distractions at a minimum. You know what I'm saying? And if you do that and you keep them around long enough, if, you know, they're going to catch on to all the aspects, you know, and eventually, you know, they'll want to, you know, eventually some young mother of 3 or 4, you know what I'm saying, who been in, you know, this hood reality, who ain't never knew none of this stuff, is getting involved, and you know, and now she's talking to one of us. She's talking to Talisa about who is this Joy Powell lady. You know what I'm saying? And you know, I want to write her too. You know, I want to hear from a woman like her. You know what I'm saying? And then, you know, then it's just trendy. You know what I'm saying? And then that person send you something back, and now you know you're inspired, and now you like. Now I know why people fight for people behind bars with a political statement, because the value of their life, and not only the value of their life, how they can inspire me, because they have survived these conditions, you know, that they've been held under because of their beliefs, but they're inspiring me, you know, as an individual from the hood or wherever. They're inspiring me now. Like, man, you know, I'm inspired by this sister. I'm inspired by this brother, who've been a part of, the prison enslavement process. And so now I'm inspired by them, and now not only am I inspired by them to keep fighting, I'm inspired to work on their behalf. And so this, like I say, that's the way it can happen. Like you say, how do we keep them around long enough? Well, that's the $1 million question. But once you do that, you can get them involved in many different aspects. And what you will find is that when people come into the movement and stuff, and you do keep them around, what you will find is they have a passion for some of this stuff all along. But once you bring them into the knowledge of it, then they like, okay, I want to work with that. You see what I'm saying? Yeah, I want to work with that because because of something, this, that, and the third, something that happened in a past, and now they are a little bit more politically educated. They could tie what happened in their past to what was going on, dealing in the political realm, and so they can attach themselves to it, and now they want to work with that aspect. And this is actually, I mean, I've seen this actually happen as well. It's not just theoretical, just thinking that it can happen. I've seen this happen, and that's one way it can happen. Like I say, the $1 million question is, how do you keep them engaged long enough? Is that you have to have something for them to do that, that's a part of something they're passionate about. You bringing somebody into the fold is you're not doing nothing they're passionate about. The likelihood of them sticking around, even if they mean well, is not that high. But the likelihood of them sticking around with you got a program or a service geared toward what they're passionate about, the likelihood of them sticking around and learning more about, the prison movement, political prisoners, the prisoners of war, things like that, is, the likelihood of that happening, it goes up a little bit more. The percentage goes up when they find something they passionate about that you already doing.
I agree with you.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah. So yeah. Yeah, every time I talk about Black August history, I always feel like I'm missing something. But it's so much that goes in with, when it comes to Black August. It's a basic introduction, but it's so much that come with. It's really just revolutionary culture. Just we put it into the scope of August and call it Black August because of the many things that had happened. But it's really for every month. And it just like I say, it's called Black August Resistance for a reason. It's really just resistance, and liberation. That's really just what the focus is. You're resisting enslavement and you're organizing for freedom. That's basically, the basic principles of Black August, you know what I'm saying? And some of the prison movements like the George Jackson University ever founded in 2000 by Abdul Olabala Shakur in one of our, I'm about to say Dallas Fort Worth zone, but he actually from Mississippi, but he stayed here for a long time. Elder who just passed a couple of years ago, in his late 90s, Dr. Evans, peace be upon him, when he started George Jackson University, they had to fight to make it legitimate in the courtroom, had to fight, after the Abdul and other people, their cell have been ransacked and the documents and the educational pieces have been torn apart by the state and the guards and things of that nature. And they had to go to court by himself and represent, for the George Jackson University, that he had the right to be a legit institution. And the institutions of consciousness, which we know they don't want, but it ended up winning. You know what I'm saying? So you have that, all the way up into today. Is at one point it was the biggest revolutionary institution in the country because it had, almost 500 students that was affected by it. Those who were in the prison and stayed there, and those who, came out of the prison, who continued the process of not only academically educating themselves, which is geared towards, but also educating itself to transform the criminal mentality to a revolutionary mentality, which was the George Jackson University aspired to do. And that's what we aspire to do with all the prison population. Of course, it is always a challenge because, this society is always find a way to encourage criminal activity. Even though they say that they don't want criminal activity, they encourage it just as much as they say that they don't want it, because they rather have that because that legitimizes their oppression. You know what I'm saying? Go ahead. So,
So basically, what you're saying, like Black August ain't just, some people, especially a lot of the intellectuals, they think it's just about, reading and studying and for that month or whatever. But you're saying it's more of a lifestyle. It's not something that you just pick up today and decide, oh, well, I'm going to study this because it's Black August. I'm going to fast this day.
yep,
It's really more of a lifestyle that's supposed to be something that you live off of already anyway.
yep, right and exact. Yep, exactly. That's right. It's supposed to it just kick off, it just help inspire you to go even harder. That's just what it do. But yeah, you're right. Yep. That's what it's supposed to do. It's not like I say, it's not supposed to be used like Black History Month. Black History Month shouldn't even be used like that, really, but we do it, you know what I'm saying? But they done dumbed it down in the school system and stuff like that. So, it's not supposed to be used like that where we, Black History Month and we putting fists in the air and we wearing all the red, black, and green shirts and shoes and hats. And then when March and April and May come around, we ain't thinking about it no more, you know what I'm saying? But Black August is not supposed to be like that at all. It's a continuation process of, what we feel we deserve. So yeah.
Of course, you've been engaged in this for a long time. I guess my question is, throughout that time, what do you see that needs improvement as far as how we go about Black August, and what have you seen also be limitations um, in regards to how we go about Black August?
Well, as far as the last part, the limitations are always most limitations of life are mostly always encouraged by language. Right. Like when I mentioned the young people, I always one that was at the forefront of the different movements throughout history of the world, really, not just in some of America, even in ancient days. Like the young people, like when kids are like real small, they're very courageous and very blunt and upfront. They don't sugarcoat nothing. They going for it all. You know what I'm saying? And that's because they haven't been taught fear and speculation yet. Now, of course, they might be scared of certain things, maybe, might be scared of the dark. Their imagination get too dark for them, but like they haven't been taught and beat down by society yet. You see what I'm saying? They haven't been taught that, you supposed to submit to this. You ain't supposed to do that. Don't question this. Don't question that. They're not at that age yet where they've been fully indoctrinated with this. You know what I'm saying? They've been fully taken to a place where they have all this fear and speculation built up. All of this is produced by societal norms and language. We have to change our language. Black August simply is just not about prisoners and prison movements, but that is a major aspect of what it's dealing with because that's where it was founded as far as the Black August, the term Black August, right? It was pushed foremost in the prisons by real revolutionaries. But the Black August resistance message ain't for people just in prison, and it ain't just about prisoners and prison movements. You Once we express things how they are, people can latch on to them faster. But if we allow myths to go on, and go on, like I always say, that's why I'm always talking about something as simple as the 1619 thing. Even some of our brightest people, they first day 1619, 1619, 1619. I'm always saying no, 1525, 1526. We run the Spanish territory, we run to Georgia. Why you think the Gullah Geechee? We got the Gullah Geechee, they've been practicing that culture ever since. You know what I'm saying? We got people now who's part of, is the Gullah Geechee people still, South Carolina, people in South Carolina. You know, we have to break these myths and break them down and make it plain, you know. And so when people understand that, yeah, Black August is not about what happened to George Jackson during the assassination, but you must know the kind of figure he was. You must read Soledad, brother. You must read Blood in My Eye, because it breaks down some things you must understand and carry with you. You must know what happened to, you know, W.L. Nolan, Jonathan Jackson. You must know what happened to them, but it ain't just about them. They're just the martyrs of Black August, but it's not just about them. It's not just about the prison movement, but the prison movement is important. That's why you need to know about it. So when we break these down, just like like I tell people when it comes to history, young people in the family that don't want to know history, I say it's because of their family members, their parents or grandparents, whoever, more likely it's the parents. They present history or Black history or whatever. They present it as though it's a history is just a film, you know, black and white pictures with dogs chasing and biting people, or Black people hanging from a tree by a rope. That is not what history is. History is everything that has ever happened in existence. That is history. No, you ain't gonna know it all. Hell no, you ain't gonna know it all. But the thing is to understand history in the proper context. It's not about a bunch of black and white films or pictures. It's about reality. What has happened in 10 years ago that deal with what's now, because the past is the present and the present is the future. What happened yesterday contributed to what happened today. You didn't get enough sleep yesterday, so your ass is tired as hell today, and you don't want to do nothing on your list that you wrote. You don't want to do nothing on your to-do list because you're tired. So everything that happens before contributes to what has happened now. That's how we must look at history, and that's how we must present Black August. We don't, you know, if you don't let have people have preconceived notions of what they think things are. You present it as what it is, then they can make an educated decision on what they want to do.
I agree to that. I think
Yeah.
people have a very weird ideology about what history is, and some people don't think it's even necessary to even know
Mm-hmm.
it.
Right.
Um, Also, I agree with changing the language, because we don't always have to be so formal
Yep. Yep.
talking to people,
Mm-hmm.
you know,
Right.
and also just letting them know about the contradictions and stuff as well. We don't always have to be so formal, because everybody don't grasp that, you know.
Right.
Once you start talking formal to everybody, you lose them, and that's when they
Mm-hmm.
become uninterested.
Yeah. Uh-huh. Yep. Exactly. That's right. Yep. You got to put it into the language the people understand, you know, and deliver it like they understand it, and you know they can grasp hold to it. So yeah, that's right and exact. So either way, Q, that's what I think about as far as that just changing the language. This ain't our language no damn way, so we might as well do with it what we want to do. We do it anyway. You know what I'm saying? That's where slang come from. Shit, you know what I'm saying? You ain't gonna find some of these slang terms in Webster's dictionary. It's just something that we created in our own reality with the way we live. You know what I'm saying? Because this ain't our language no way. You know, so you know, we might as well put our language into the context in which we can use that's gonna benefit us. Because the language itself ain't even, you know, I don't want to go too deep into it, but you know, grammar itself, of course, you know, the root word of grammar is called grammoir, which is the original definition of grammoir is called the tricky language. If you see, and so what you think about, so we every day we talking a tricky language, right? It's a language that's not made to put full understanding into you. So that's English. So we might as well bring about, you know, our revolutionary culture with the language that people can understand and make it plain, but you know, make it in a way that favors how we want to express it. You know what I'm saying? Good, bad, right or wrong, all of that.
Let me ask you this. Have you seen other groups throughout history support this movement? The part, I guess, particularly not just abolition, I guess itself, but just um, Black August. Have you seen them pop out? Have you seen it more recently, or has it been coming and going throughout the years?
You said support from who?
Just other groups, whether it be other nationalities, other
Uh-huh.
I guess nonprofit or it doesn't have to be nonprofit, but just other organizations. Yeah, I guess what's been your experience with others trying to involve themselves with Black August?
Oh, other groups like that, not other cultures. You're not talking about other group cultures. Cultures.
It
You
can
just talking about other.
it could be other cultures. Like if other cultures see utility in Black August, have they tried to be a part of Black August?
Yeah. Well, as far as other cultures, yes. It's not always in mass number, which is what some of these. I ain't even giving them no legitimacy, but these these new groups, these fundamental groups or whatever they call themselves. All these people, they look at things like if it ain't every Mexican or every Asian, if it ain't all of them in their family showing solidarity, then solidarity don't exist. But that's not how life works. Because guess what? All our people don't back what the hell we do. That's how we suffer the defeat in the first place. Nobody can defeat you if you totally unified. Huey P. Newton had a quote. It said the will of the masses of the people is greater than a man's technology. And that ain't nothing Huey said after he drunk a Budweiser. It's true. It's actually true. Technology is a liability in war. Technology is a liability. We think it's always a place of strength to have the most technology, but it is. But technology is a liability in when you're dealing with international politics and warfare. So the will of the masses, who are the majority, is always going to outdo some technology because their will is going to override the minority. But the reason it don't because they stuck in here. They got their minds. And so you got their mind and there it is. And so we think that, yeah, you got some, American in the movement, revolutionary, I mentioned the Young Lords teaming up with the Black Panther. Yeah, you have other groups that have always taken part in the Black August resistance and everything that is meant. Do they come in droves out of wherever they come from? In some cases, no. But do we come in droves? You see what I'm saying? And, shit, if we did, all our politicals would be free right then and there. If we had people marching and rallying and demanding that the freedom of, political prisoners and prisoners of war, they had no choice but to do it. And as far as other groups, as far as like different formations, every group and formation has its line, right? It has its political line. And some other groups, political line just don't line up with Black August resistance. For one thing, they only want to resist the enslavement culture of the state of capitalism, imperialism. They only want to resist that to a small degree. Enough for them to feel safe, but enough for them to feel like they did something. See what I'm saying? And that's where we at this level right now, is that we got a lot of people want to do something as long as it feels safe and as long as, I could feel like I'm Angela Davis or I'm Bobby Seale or Martin Luther King and Malcolm. As long as I could feel like I'm them, I'm good. But I don't want to get too deep. So that's what a lot of positions of a lot of groups that, even if they not nonprofit, people always attack the nonprofit sector, but it's groups that are not nonprofit that they the same way. They political line don't line up with full-blown resistant enslavement and oppression from other people.
And I think if they do, just like I said, it's not something that people should just be clinging on. Black August, this August, like I said, it's a
Yeah.
lifestyle. It might be just like when people talk about Kwanzaa. Kwanzaa has its principles. Kwanzaa is not
Mhm.
just for those days. It's something that
Yeah.
you're supposed to be living in your life anyway. So when you're
Right.
already living this way, it's not something that's hard to grasp on to when August or in December when that type of thing comes around. It's something that you
Mhm.
already have built inside you. So that's why when you said that it's not easy to get people to grasp onto these things, it's truth because it has to be complete discipline. You have to already
Mhm.
be on that. You have to already be having your mindset on these
Yep.
principles and on these things to even want to grasp it.
Yep. That's right. Yep. Mhm. Yep. That's right. Yep. Yep. Yeah. Funny as you mentioned Kwanzaa too. That's another one people do that with. The Kwanzaa thing, you know, they run band it up, you know what I'm saying? And damn January,
Exactly.
they ain't thought about it. They don't understand that people in Tanzania to this day use Ujamaa, cooperative economics and collectivism. You know, that was started by the Tanzania liberation movements when Julius Nyerere and, you know, those guys were taking power. You know, they used those terms and those principles to galvanize their whole society. And that's what they did. And they still pull those principles in certain sectors of Tanzania to this day. So yeah, you're right about that.
Yeah, I noticed that during Kwanzaa too. Like people celebrate all these self-determination and collective learning and all this other stuff. But on any other day, they wouldn't be doing this, but they're doing it only for the holiday. But this is a lifestyle. That's why,
Right.
like, when I hear a lot of people talk about Black August, they almost talk about it like a celebration, like a
Mm-hmm.
fiesta. And that's not what it is. It's a
Right.
complete opposite of that, you know? So it's like,
Mm-hmm.
it's a little
Yep.
crazy on how people perceive things as well.
Yeah, I know. That's what. Yeah. You gotta let them know, like, man, this ain't no. They don't damn celebrate. This ain't no damn Juneteenth. Yeah, shit, Juneteenth barbecue cookout, which ain't nothing wrong with that. But like, this ain't that. People lost
No,
their
it's not.
lives behind this kind of culture. You know what I'm saying? Yeah, people assassinated, and we use the word assassinated specifically. We don't say they were murder, racist murder. Even with Dr. Key, we don't say no damn murder. He was assassinated. That's a political assassination. They ain't had nothing to do with no damn James Earl Ray. James Earl Ray wasn't even in goddamn Memphis. You know what I'm saying on that day. You know what I'm saying? So it's just, yeah, you know, these people assassinated. Our community was sabotaged behind this kind of culture. You know, yeah, this ain't no damn, you know, we can do a barbecue, you know, but we do a barbecue, we need some education and some other things going on. You know what I'm saying? Not just no t-shirts and nice earrings and hats.
Exactly.
Yeah, you know. So we just got to keep pushing it, man. Either people get with it or they don't. You know. America, you know, makes it hard to, you know, people in America always want to, you know. I know some people that even told me like they were like, I like movies with happy endings. You know what I'm saying? I guess because I expressed to him that a movie don't have to have a happy ending for me. Shit, a movie just got to be good. Shit, you know what I'm saying? Because that ain't how life is. You know, you have hot and cold, good or bad, positive, negative. You know what I'm saying? Everything ain't about flying off into the sunset and you know what I'm saying, into this wonderful bliss.
Exactly.
And oh,
But there's
now the
lessons
credits.
in everything, whether it's good or
Yeah,
bad. There's
right.
lessons in it, and
It
people don't know
is.
how to
Yeah.
take the lesson from something that's bad because they figure and
Yep.
good can come out of something bad. There's a lot of good things
Right.
that came out of bad things.
That's right. That's right. Yeah, you're a point with that. Exactly. So I like happy endings. I'm like, well, shit, has some of these happy ending films made me, I go to sleep on this shit. Yeah. Because it ain't realistic to me. You know what I'm saying? I don't mind no fantasy, but, you know, it just, you know, I like some realism in certain things. You know, I can get with that. And so, yeah. So, yeah. Shoot, man, we've been a real good. We got anything here?
No, thank you for the political education. It's been eye opening to say the least. So thank you.
Yeah, no doubt, no doubt, no doubt.